And we're live. It's Ryan Ripley and Todd Miller with Agile for Humans. Todd, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing really good. Feel a little rested. Maybe overly rested from a little bit of a break.
Yeah, if you're watching this over the next few days, it's right after New Year's. It's just became 2023. If you're watching this into the future, well, welcome to the past. Anyways, we had a big news story over the break that impacted a ton of people. And it was near and dear to our hearts because we are huge customers, or we were, and still are, of this particular airline. I'm sure everybody saw in the news the issues that Southwest was having with getting flights. I think over what, Todd, 15,000 flights have been canceled.
Yeah, it seems like they're getting it back on track right now, but it's a lot of cancellations, a lot of stories emerging of people stranded in airports, along with crew, which is interesting. And I think, Ryan, as soon as we saw this was related to a technology problem, we started digging in and wanted to know more.
Yeah, this always, again, like we both have had A-list status, we both have companion status, we both have literally hundreds of thousands of miles with this company. And so this isn't a dig in any sense of the way, shape, or form. It's really just, this is a company we love. And we're like, what is happening? Because they are just getting trashed in the news. And then as soon as, like Todd said, as soon as technology popped up, we're like, all right, this is probably interesting. And so we did some Google searching. I'm not going to say research. I don't think typing in the Google search bar is research. But we did kind of poke and look around a bit. And Todd, you've put together kind of an interesting map here of what could have happened.
And just to reiterate what you were saying, Ryan, I mean, this is a company that I don't think we had really anything poor to say about ever. I've had really excellent and amazing customer service. I've had lost bags that they've paid for. I've had free flights. I've had cancellations that they've made up for. But this is a bigger deal when you're talking about thousands and thousands upon thousands of people in crew stranded in airports. And we did a little bit of research. I'm going to pull up, maybe just pull this mirror up for a little bit to kick off that conversation, Ryan.
Yeah.
There we go. So what we did find is the core of the problem. So what we know of, right, from our internet research.
And we're going to provide all the links in the chat. What we want you to do is we want you to follow along, we want you to listen, assume that we're incorrect, do your own research. Check out the links, put your own story and narrative together. This is just one possible interpretation of what's been happening.
Yeah. And that interpretation that we've arrived at is that there were apps involved that came to crew scheduling, right? So where are pilots and where are people that are serving in the planes and like flight attendants, and what it came down to is the systems seem to have crashed. It seems that in the past that there's been red flags thrown up about these systems with inclement weather would overload them. They would frequently crash, and they would just move over to a manual process in a call center. And that's what happened here. But because of that big snowstorm that kind of went its way and worked its way across the United States, it crashed and it didn't come back. And so there was not a very good idea where the crew was at, including pilots. Thousands of pilots left having to pay for their own hotel rooms and things like this. And these two things, from what we gather and what we've read, SkySolver and Crew Web Access were the two applications that failed. And so if you don't know where attendants are, if you don't know where pilots are, and you're rerouting flights, Ryan, you really can't get a plane up in the air, right?
Not very effectively, right? So if you have, and keep in mind, this started with a massive snowstorm, right? So very, very bad weather, especially in the Midwest. And so they started making adjustments to schedules. When these apps went down, they switched to basically phone calls, according to the articles, where basically people were calling into a call center trying to reroute pilots and flight crew, and just a massive bottleneck. And of course, when you're basically working off of a telephone with thousands of flights and tens of thousands of people involved and the customers, and this just compiles into this massive snowball of issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and from what I gather too, just looking at some of the news, the massive issues have actually worked their way up to the federal government, where there's going to be an investigation, which isn't good. And and so we did a little bit more research. We wanted to understand some of the things that were happening there, right? So we had these two applications. We see technology, and Ryan and I can't help ourselves, right? And so we did find some information. There's quite a bit out. Again, the videos that we watched and the information we found, you can find in the description. But some of the tools from a process perspective that they were using is OKRs, objective key results, a tool called Path to Agility. I'm not all that familiar with it, so I can't speak to it. And SAFe. SAFe was an agile scaling framework that they had been working to implement. I think we saw since 2017, 2018, something in that regards.
Yep.
And then I'm sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
I was just going to say, it looks like there was some kind of implementation done around, that 2018, 2020-ish range.
Mm-hmm.
Path to Agility was a tool that the particular consultancy that I believe did the SAFe implementation. And we'll link some videos where you can check that out. That's a tool that they use to look at an agile path in an organization. And of course, OKRs, very, very common, very popular, goal-oriented framework, more of corporate executive level objectives. And we'll get into how those played out as well. Sorry, Ty, didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no worries at all. And speaking of OKRs, right? So we think in terms of evidence-based management, right? Brian and I think in terms of evidence-based management. Three components to evidence-based management are goals, evidence, and empiricism, right? So when we think OKRs, we think of organizational goal setting. How's that happening? And so we did find that there were technology OKRs, and the three technology OKRs that they had from an organizational perspective was faster, better, and more efficient. Right? You're talking in terms of evidence-based management. You're talking at the highest level, strategic, right? Strategic goals. Evidence-based management has strategic, intermediate, and immediate tactical goals. All that we know in this conversation and all that we could see in this conversation were exclusively centered around what I would consider to be an evidence-based management strategic goals. Would you agree? Right?
Yep, I would agree.
Interesting too, we found how they were measuring them, at least two of the three. Faster. But how they were measuring faster was deployment success rate. So deployment success rate, what happens in a lot of organizations is it sounds like this was happening at Southwest, is that when there is a planned outage, which means a deployment window, when we can deploy software on purpose and we know that it's going to happen, we've alerted everybody involved that there's an outage. By the way, an indication of probably a lot of technical debt to begin with is the fact that you need to provide an outage window to deploy software. That, to me, I think in and of itself spells technical debt to me. We think, Ryan?
I would agree. Let me temper that a little bit. I do think this is a regulated industry. I think the FAA is involved. I think airports are very particular about when things get updated. So there are probably some regulatory and airport related overhead that pushes down a bit, but absolutely tech debt indicators are here as well.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say, because you need to probably provide those windows, and who knows from a regulatory perspective, say when it's being deployed. Yep. So in any case, what they did though is they wanted to increase their deployment success rate from what it was into, they had an objective of 80% or something like that. I'm not forgiving the quote. So to say that they were faster, it was an improved deployment success rate. Now we'll point out that there's probably some flaws with that. We'll get that one. I think we're going to try to take these and put these in the KVAs and talk about them. Is that okay, Ryan?
Yeah.
Cool. Better was how they were measuring better is something called a safe predictability score. And so here's what I understand to be a safe predictability score. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. It was the way that it was described in one of our sources that we're going to have, is that during API planning, you bring stakeholders in and you have them rank on a scale of 1 to 10 how much value something has from a business perspective. Then you go back and you look later, was that potential value deployed? And then you have the stakeholders rescore it after it's deployed on a scale of 1 to 10. And the idea being, apparently SAFe says that it should be 80% or more. you should have an 80% or more safe predictability score when it comes to this. Lots of flaws in that. We'll talk about the flaws when we try to map those into the KVAs. And then the last one, just real quickly, more efficient. I didn't find a measurement that was provided that would tell us that we were more efficient.
I'm assuming giving the Southwest like the front facing vision and goals, where a lot of the Southwest discussion is on being the lowest cost carrier. I'm assuming there's a cost component to this efficiency. So some kind of cost of delivery, some kind of cost of deployment is probably a part of this. Although to Todd's point, nothing was specifically cited.
Yeah. So let's, Brian, can we, so you mentioned vision, right? I'm going to kind of bring this up here. I put the company vision in here, which, you know what, to be honest with you, I've felt as a customer, the world's most loved, most efficient, and most profitable airline. I haven't felt the profitable thing, right? Because I just haven't. But I've always had really fond experiences, and it's been efficient. I like the style of boarding personally. Some people don't. I like it, right? But that's really the company vision. And when we talk about how things map into here, like a company vision, strategic goals should be in alignment with that vision, right? These goals from strategic down really create alignment in an organization. So when I look at the company vision to be the world's most loved, most efficient, and most profitable, I think, Ryan, you were just talking about more efficient. That probably led to more profitable. That's probably the idea behind that. Is that right?
I believe so. Yeah, it's definitely a component.
How would you interpret this more efficient? I think probably under ability to innovate. Is that where you would put it?
I would actually, like, if I had to place it, I think this more efficient is probably going to slide somewhere like right here. And I know in all of our classes, we always tell our students, no, you can't put something in the middle. But I really think there's probably some time to market and probably some ability to innovate things mixed into this.
Yeah. I think I could go for that. Yeah. And so it's interesting because just because these things are true, just because we're more efficient, that doesn't necessarily mean that we have higher customer value, does it?
No, not at all. And I think this is actually one of the problems that we run into, especially when organizations are using OKRs. This is a convoluted goal. Like, this is, let's be more efficient. Okay, at what and how? And how would we measure that efficiency? And so you get kind of these nebulous things that can mean anything, so that we could never possibly miss that goal. And so I think this is actually a big red flag that we see with orgs using OKRs to set these types of objectives.
Yeah. And that sort of leads me to wanting to put this down here, this safe predictability score. I think that there was a thought. So because you're more efficient. Oh, by the way, I should drag this down here too. Because here's what this was saying is if we're faster and we're better and we're more efficient, that equals customer satisfaction. That was the hypothesis of why they were measuring what they were measuring. If we're better and faster and more efficient, that's customer satisfaction, right? That is what they were saying is customer satisfaction. And so I probably wouldn't hurt just to say something here, Ryan, like the definition here, ability to innovate. How effective are we, right? How effective?
I like it.
We're just putting these down here. We would say time to market, just to put this down here. How long does it take? So you've got me now, because I totally agree with you by putting the more efficient in between, because I think that there's factors in both of these that would say that.
Well, and even if you look at like cost per customer, maybe that's a value measurement, right? So I mean, the problem with that type of OKR is that it fits in so many different areas that it just becomes almost meaningless, right?
100%. And that leads me to drag this puppy down here, right? So safe predictability score. I think the intention was to look at that and think about current value, right? And so current value is the value that we're delivering right now, right? So value is currently delivered by the organization. So what value is currently delivered by the org.
I think the problem, though, and I think I'm stealing your thunder a bit, is that safe predictability score is really a plan versus actual delivery metric. And so, that's an oversimplification. So I wonder, Todd, if that better actually has to slip down to time to market.
Yeah. So here's the whole thing about this: that better safe predictability score is a hypothesis of value,
Yep.
right? And so this tells us nothing about current value. This is just a hypothesis of value. You have stakeholders coming in and ranking something, and then after it's deployed, you have stakeholders ranking it. That is just a hypothesis that something is valuable to your customer, right? Because it's stakeholders, not your customers, telling you that. So I don't even know that I would classify it anywhere, right? I'm not sure how valid of a metric that is altogether. I don't even know if I would put that under time to market, just because it just doesn't sit right with me. How about you?
The actual definition, and I want to make sure we want to be fair on this. So this predictability metric calculates the ratio of planned business value achieved to actual business value delivered in the PI. And so there's probably some time to market, and there's probably some current value stuff. Again, it's this convoluted, it probably sits in between current value and time to market.
Yeah. I'm going to say this. I'm going to do this, Ryan, and I hope you're okay with it. I don't think that it should sit in between anywhere.
It should just go away.
Yeah. Yep. This is not a good metric. I don't, it doesn't, it's no indicator of value actually delivered, right?
Correct.
It's an indicator of hypothetical value delivered, but it's not validating anything. There is no validation happening in this. Is that okay? Is that too harsh for you?
No. I think it's great.
Yeah. Yep. Cool. I'm glad we agree. So where would you put deployment success rate? Did it deploy in a outage window?
Time to market.
Time to market. I think this is another case where you could actually put it in both.
Right. Ability to innovate, the impact of those windows of regulation. Yeah, I think that you can make another good argument for that. True.
Yeah. Because I would say this, just because so we could measure release frequency, right? But just because, and I guess you would say release frequency is a time to market measurement, right? But because it says deployment success rate, there's still things that are failing and prohibiting us from deploying during those outage windows. So I don't think it's very clear here. I'm not necessarily against that metric. I think that could tell us something. I don't know that it really clearly delineates between whether we're looking at trying to improve our ability to innovate or trying to get to market faster. Is that right? Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it works.
Just for the heck of it, too, Ryan, I'm going to put this this definition: additional potential value, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting, Todd, the way that you've got a note up here about customer satisfaction and the way that they're measuring that, and it's the faster, better, more efficient equals customer satisfaction. But what I'm seeing are delivery metrics being used to basically equal customer satisfaction. And again, we pulled this equation out of a video with Southwest Airlines IT leadership, and so those links are in the description. This is not a metric, in our opinion, that measures value, or which customer satisfaction would be a current value type metric, but that's not current value. This is mainly an organizational's ability to deliver, right? So time to market and ability to innovate have to do with an organization's delivery capability. Value and current and unrealized value, that's market, that's customer driven. And as you can see, the key OKRs that we were able to pull from these interviews and from these videos have nothing to do with customer, have a lot to do with tech. And we're not even talking about the technical debt discussions that have come up since this whole situation has occurred. There's an article that we'll post about an initiative started back in 2017, nearly $1 billion initiative to update technology. And so these are not new issues. These were known. And I think this is just, it's old tech stacked on top of new tech and a lot of different things happening at once, coupled with a really nasty snowstorm that just created kind of this perfect storm for this type of situation.
Yeah, Ryan, you know what you're really making me think too is I wonder if fundamentally, and I think I skimmed at least a little bit of an article that another PST had sent us about how organizationally the way that they were structured might have prohibited them from really being able to make the decisions they needed to around customer satisfaction. Now, I don't know, right? I don't know, but if you're viewing, and which a lot of organizations do, as IT as an expense of doing business rather than part of the business, that these kinds of things are not uncommon, right? So I haven't had a chance to go through that whole article. You know, you and I got sucked down into a vortex of this morning, but I think that probably weighed into here too. Not to just say OKR is safe and this other thing that we're path to agility we're to blame, but also some organizational and structure and things like that, and tech debt and all these things. We're just looking at it from a lens and having a conversation about it.
You know, and if you look at the tooling, that's where my head goes to. You know, you see the OKRs, and of course, you know, OKRs can be used well, but often they lead to this ambiguity that we're mapping out here. We of course prefer EBM, but OKRs they can be used well. This path to agility tool, it looks like a safe implementation tracking tool where you know, at a team level, we form teams and they're working, and it looks at some baseline metrics on a team. At a system level, it looks like product definition and value, very basic again. At an organizational level, you see, um, you know, vision, strategy, decision making, agility, things like that. But it's checking boxes on the safe implementation path.
Mm-hmm.
And what concerns me is organizations spend so much money to put these scaling frameworks into place, Todd, but do they fundamentally change the technology stack, the architecture, the technical excellence, all of the things necessary for agility to flourish in an organization? And I think this is one example where no,
Mm-hmm.
the transformation may not have had that desired type of impact. And maybe that wasn't part of the transformation. Maybe the transformation was purely at a team level, ignore the technology. If that's the case, then this outcome makes sense. But I mean, if I'm leading an agile transformation, if I'm involved in an organization and it's my money, I would want the tech stack evaluated. I would want the technology to be um, appropriate for what we're trying to do as an organization in regards to agility. I would want to make those investments before I ever taught a team Scrum or Safe or Kanban or Lean, because as we see time and time again, the tech stack and the technical excellence and the architecture are going to be far bigger limiting factors, like in this case here, than how agile uh, your people are. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I know, that's one of my big major rants is that we spend so much time and attention on training and agile transformation, but the fundamental flaw behind all of it is we can't be because we're not technically efficient and sufficient. And, all of this really culminates and reminds me and makes me think about this red sticky note up here, circling back on that. And I think that fundamentally this is a flawed thought, is that we could be faster, we could be better, meaning, have a better ability to innovate and be faster, and we could be more efficient, and our customers no more satisfied. Right. There is nothing to me that tells me that just because you're faster, better, and more efficient, that your customer will be more satisfied. And I think that that's the point here, right? We can't kid ourselves and think that just because these two are true, just because ability to innovate and time to market, right? Which I think we've really bucketed a lot of these in, besides this one, which just throw out altogether, because that doesn't tell you anything about current value. But these things could be true, and your current customers unhappy, and your ability to get to new customers or give new features that are delightful to customers or they're satisfying to customers isn't there. So yes, we need these, but an entire focus on these really, really, really makes it hard, or if not impossible, to keep focus on what's happening with our current customers. And I think this is a case of that.
Yeah. This is one of those cases where if we're trying to, look at from an EBM perspective, if I'm looking at current value, Todd, I want some kind of metric that shows, did we get our customers from point A to point B comfortably, safely, and when we promised we would. Right? I think that's the value back to the customer. When I buy an airline ticket, I don't know about you, Todd, but I want it to take off when it says it's going to take off. I want it to land when it says it's going to land, and I want the plane to be clean. I want the the air filtration to work. I want the drinks to be, the water to be clean. I want the flight attendants to be pleasant, and I want the pilots to be competent. I want it to be safe, efficient, effective. I want to get there on, and there's no sense of measuring that, at least from the data and videos that we've seen. Again, we have a very limited viewpoint. We're not internal. Like I'm sure there's other things in this place, but if my vision or value goal is rooted in customer, then some of the things happening on this board, at least what we've seen in talks, do not make a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and inverting that, right? And looking about how there is something in their literature about from a company or from a employee perspective, right? Which we believe to be something that is we should be measuring, and that goes under current value, right? Because employee satisfaction. And by the way, I've had a lot of really amazing run-ins with Southwest employees.
We love the company.
Yeah, I have. Like just generally a very good vibe, right, with them. But if I think about something like we've discussed here, like the scheduling software, I just want it to do what it's going to do. I want to know that I can show up on time where I need to be, have expectations set so I can do what I'm supposed to do. And for a pilot, that's focusing on safety and getting us out of the sky in good conditions. And for a flight attendant, so I could put my smile on my face, get my job done, give the good experience, support the customers, and also safety element there. I don't want to have to be worrying about that. I honestly, and that's what I imagine, and I might be wrong because I've never done either one of those things. I've never been a flight attendant, I've never been a pilot. I've been on a heck of a lot of flights though to know. That's what the focus should be when you're having stuff like this, where you're having to call around to see where you're supposed to be, where you go on the software and every rainstorm it's crashing. That's very frustrating to an employee, which I imagine, and customers will at some point, if they haven't already, feel that, right? I've seen that in some of the stress during flying in storms from staff before. Yep. I can't say anything specifically, but I know when we're in stormy conditions and are delayed, you can see the stress that they don't understand what's happening, right? And that is then cast upon a customer. So, this is all pretty relatable to me, Ryan.
I think the last big takeaway, just to reiterate, is that SAFe or any other scaling framework or an application that's checking boxes as you implement a scaling framework, or even a goal setting framework, including EBM, will not make up for an architecture that's flawed, or it will not make up for having too much legacy software in your system, or it will not make up for bad practices and processes and procedures. It will not solve for that. It should bring forward that there are deficiencies in certain areas that need to be addressed, but no amount of agile transformation that's only rooted in process and in frameworks will solve the technical excellence issue. And so that's why, Todd, we've passed on hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in work, because we believe that the investment should be tech and architecture and excellence first, and then we'll come in and work with your teams. And that's usually not the direction that organizations want to go in.
Yeah, I've told you a bunch of times how I was once thrown out of a CIO's office because I told them that they should take the money that they want to invest in training and things like that, and they should put it into their tech because there's no process that's going to solve those problems, right?
Right.
And this has just been a long time stance of mine that we're forgetting all of this stuff. We're getting hung up on that, and then we're also losing sight of customer because it's bad to just focus on that as well, right? You as the saying goes, you eat an elephant one forkful at a time, and so for a lot of companies, just to resolve that out of the gate is impossible. So it's a balance, and that's why we love these KVAs, and we love the goal settings, the goals that evidence-based management suggests, because it gives you some insights into where you might be at current and evaluate that. Now, this could also, to your point, be used poorly and not solve your problems. But we want the conversations to be there so that hopefully this kind of thing doesn't happen.
I think if you take your current goals, OKRs, whatever you're doing, map it to the key value areas, work with professionals like Todd, myself, other people who are trained in this framework, I think you can find some of the gaps, deficiencies, the issues, and start working towards a plan to correct those. And so I think it's a very revealing framework that can help make some better decisions. Todd, I think we've covered our thoughts on this. Again, I want to encourage everybody to take everything we've said with a super huge grain of salt. We want you to follow the links that we've provided and check them out yourselves. If you agree, disagree, have different information, throw it in the comments section. We're more than happy to revisit this and maybe even do some commentary on some of the videos if this proves to be interesting to others. But again, this is just our outsider view of some materials that we found online. We're certainly open to other information, and we want you to be super critical in your thinking on this. And yeah, let us know what you think in the comments.
Yeah.
Anything else to add there, Mr. Miller?
I don't think so.
All right. Let's take out our piece there, bring our branding back up. And I think we're ready to close this out. So we hope you enjoyed it. Like and subscribe. Hey, a ton of you watch these videos and you're not even hitting the like button. We're not even asking for, just hit the like button. The like button helps bring our content up in the YouTube algorithm. So if you're not going to subscribe, at least like it, for Pete's sake. It's been 30 minutes you spent with us, right? You can give us a like on this video. Check out our socials. We're pretty big on Twitter and LinkedIn. We're kind of a big deal there. Some videos are going to pop up. There are free courses. Check out our free course on the Scrum framework and on EBM. We think that will be beneficial to you as well. For Todd, I'm Ryan. Go forward, do some great things. Check out EBM, avoid some of these traps, and we'll see you next time.